Welcome to another Lunch with Philip and Greg. Today's guest is Heather Williams, who I always think of as being the friendly face of G-Tech or Atomos.
That's right.
But I'm sure there's a whole lot more to Heather Williams than just somebody in a trade show booth, which is where I've mostly spent time with you, really.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do for Atomos now, and what did you previously do for G-Tech?
Yeah, so now for Atomos, I run sales for them for North America. So they brought me in, I think I was the second person in sales for the US when they first started.
Wow.
So I have a knack for working for technology startups, I suppose. And yeah, it's been quite the rocket ride, as it was with G-Tech. You know, both companies, started very humbly, and then they, skyrocketed. And for Atomos, I managed really everything that didn't have to do with the support of the product for many years. And, now we've got a lot more people, and, the company's more established. So I have help. It's nice. Yeah.
So does it all change as a company grows from that startup phase into a more mature? Does everything change?
Everything changes. Everything gets, the more you're handling a lot more, and you're doing it with a small team, and everything did change. We're kind of at that stage where, we're doing really well as a company. We still have the same core team, but you're constantly having to refine all of the processes that you use to get things done. You're constantly having to just revise everything as you go, which is work in and of itself. So yeah, it's always growing pains too. It's quite the challenge.
And Atomos is an Australian company.
It's Australian.
How do you deal with those ugly accents?
Oh man, at first, I've gotten better at identifying the accents with the different regions.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Do we have regions?
States.
Yeah. Yes.
Regional accents?
There's difference between Queensland and Tasmania.
I heard people in Western Australia tend to speak really slowly.
Okay.
A little bit more of a drawn out accent, and I would think Sydney's more of kind of like the proper London accent to England. Don't you?
And there's also a very big country city divide.
Yes.
The other piece of advice I forgot to give you is while we're talking, that's your opportunity to eat.
Oh, thank you before this yummy pot pie gets cold.
Everything's going to be cold by the time.
Yes. Well, I saw your interview with Jerry Hoffman. His salad looked untouched for a good portion of it, so I thought, okay.
Jerry got the same advice, but he just likes to talk.
Well, you get some talkers. Jerry, Michael, Maxim for sure, although Maxim's a lovely storyteller.
Oh yeah. And that was the most unusual interview because we were really talking about philosophy and changing the world.
Yeah.
Whereas mostly we tend to be talking about something to do with the technology industry. Although every lunch has a different character to it, because obviously every person we have lunch with has a different character. So every one of them has its own essence and its own character. And the great thing is that we get to spend time with people that we know, but we really don't ever have an informal interaction. Like as I said, I mostly interact with you on trade show booths or at Atomos shared parties at IBC or the like. And so it's the chance to get to meet somebody and explore who they are. And how did you get started?
Oh, well, I love my story of how I got started was because I know Ian Andes and Max Andes very well. Ian has since moved on from G-Tech, but Max is still there. And I used to bartend with Max at TGI Fridays in Woodland Hills about 16 years ago.
Right.
And so I knew Max really well, and at the time his brother Ian worked for Avid and was coming down all the time for trade shows and would stop into the restaurant, and I met Ian that way, and I've stayed in touch with Max all these years. And I think it was about 10 years ago when Ian knew that I was still bartending but had a business degree and he liked my personality and thought I was had a lot of wit and a lot to offer, and said he was working for this startup hard drive company and wanted to know if I wanted to come on board, and he really taught me everything that I knew about the industry, and so that's how I got started in it, and I haven't looked back ever since. I'm so thankful that he did. I would have never realized how much I loved this industry if I hadn't have had that opportunity. When you get out of college, I wasn't one of those people that knew this is what I want to do. I'm going to major in, law, and I'm going to become a lawyer. I didn't know. I knew whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to be in charge. So I became a business management major because there's a business in everything. Art, technology, everything, there's a business to it. So that's how I got started, and I spent a lot of years, managing restaurants, waiting tables, bartending, and didn't really quite know where I wanted to go. And so when I got this job, it went from a job to a career, and I thought, I always want to be in this industry. I love it. I mean, meeting you guys is one of the things. I love the people in this industry.
I really love the people in this industry too.
It's the best part about it. I love working with creative people, and I love seeing all the same people at all the same shows and having this relationship. I mean, to go back to what you said before, is I think we met each other about 7 years ago. I'm sure I was a Super Meat groupie, Lassie Pug groupie. So I know that's how we met, but I think in the last few years I've spoken to you guys more on a personal level and gotten to know you guys, and I just love that. I love that I have that relationship with, especially the circle that we run in with the Super Meats and the Lassie Pugs, with the Ben Kings, the Maxims, the Michael Hortons of the group.
It's a great group of people.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and that's the problem, really, or it's the most important thing I think about going to places like NAB and IBC. Yeah, you've got to be there because it's the trade show. It's where you get to meet people, the serendipity of a trade show that you can't get online. There's all of that going on. But it's really, I think it's mostly about going and seeing people. Started with us with the iMug. Yeah. And the iMug was originally a Media 100 online email group. And then they started to have a breakfast or a dinner at NAB, and that became the Media Motion Ball of now. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's like, well, do we really need to go to NAB? Well, yes, we do, but if we didn't go, we wouldn't see people. And so that's the aspect that I like about the trade shows is really getting to spend time with people, not so much the mundanity of being at a trade show and doing that.
And that's sort of what's happened to us now, because we've been much more involved in NAB and having to do things. We've had to give up a lot of the social things because it conflicts with other things that we're doing. So NAB used to be very social and has now become kind of
much worker social. We've missed 2 Media Motion Balls now. And it just, because time evolves, and most of those people are still in sort of the production businesses that they were in when we first got into the Media 100 group. Whereas our business has gone, I was certainly doing that. I'm a small producer in Australia. I did a bit of After Effects. I did a bit of everything else. So I had, we had the same common interests. We were all Media 100. We all migrated to Final Cut together. That group has largely migrated to Premiere Pro rather than Final Cut 10. Whereas, we find Final Cut 10 has been very good to us, and it's, like jumping on that future. And Final Cut 10 related events have kind of pushed us away from the Media Motion Ball into something else.
Yeah. Well, all I have to say is if anything, I think me going to the G-Tech party at NAB is a requirement. And if Adamus ever gets in the way of me going to that party on Monday nights, I'll probably have to quit because that party is just the opportunity for me to reconnect with everybody that I used to work with, all the customers I used to see, and it's just it's my excuse to dress up. Yep. Once a year at least to get dressed up and go hang out. But yeah, I agree. It's become a complete social thing to go to these shows, and it's the part that I love most. I love walking from booth to booth. Hey, hi, how you doing? What's up? Hi. Drink later. So. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Have you experienced much of the democratization of, I guess G-Tech in a way was starting to bring the cost of the tools down and more affordable drives, and Atomos certainly with 4K recorders for under $1,000 now, certainly sets a new barrier. But has that affected and changed the businesses that you've been in during this time?
Well, absolutely. I mean, especially if you take Adamus, for example, they invented the whole recorder monitor market. Now we have 4 different, 4+ competitors trying to do the same thing. And the thing that, I loved most about Adamus, which is actually, it would have had to have taken a pretty amazing company to get me to leave G-Tech, was when I was in London, and Jeremy, our CEO, approached me about working for Adamus. We went out for drinks that night in London, and he said to me, I got wrapped up in his passion for the company and his passion for making products for professionals. And it really took me back to the early days of G-Tech. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to work for a company that's that's passionate about making products for creative individuals. And so the products, I think you can see that in the Adamus products. We're all about, listening to the customer, making sure we got our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, and making these products based on feedback that we get from customers, which is really nice, because I don't think a lot of companies, some companies might not listen to their customers as much as we do. When I worked at G-Tech was amazing because I just loved the quality of the products, and that we really made these sexy looking if drives can be sexy, but we made these sexy looking drives for creative professionals, and we paid a lot of attention to quality, and I think we set the bar in both. I mean, we had all these companies with Adamus trying to replicate what we were already doing, and some are doing it well, some not. And then with G-Tech, they definitely set the standard for professional hard drives. So yeah, I think as long as I keep working to kind of raise that standard for how products are made for professionals, then that I would be a happy woman.
So having been in one startup, as the business matures, does it lose interest for you?
That's a good question. With G-Tech it did. And with Adamus it has not yet. With G-Tech, we were right before I left the company, we were at this, there was this looming acquisition of the company. It was when Western Digital bought the HDSD side of Hitachi, and there wasn't any development happening. I think we had just come out with portable hard drives, and that was like our biggest exciting announcement. There was no professional products being made. So I remember after I had talked to Jeremy in London and he had approached me about working for the company, I thought, I went back to the US, I had a show, and I was sitting in front of the drives and I was looking down at them and I was like, how long have I been selling this stuff? It's a portable USB drive. I can only be so excited about that, And with Adamus, our products just keep getting cooler. But to go back to G-Tech, they really got their act together in terms of, they come out with a lot more since the small portable drives. So they're in a different world now than right before I left. But Adamus, though, their products just keep getting better. More exciting. I gotta say, working with the cameras is a lot sexier than hard drives. Nothing against my little pasty white editors, but the actual acquisition of the content is quite a fun industry to be in.
Certainly it has much prettier pictures.
Mm-hmm. People love cameras.
Cameras are fun to play with.
They're fun to play with.
We have this amazing A7S that's on loan from Sony. And although I do use it to demo and record, I have taken it out to take some quite amazing photographs. So yeah, playing with the cameras is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, as you guys know.
Yeah, particularly seeing the amazing low light performance that you can get from some of the cameras these days. It's utterly incredible.
Yeah. So the nice thing about working for Adamus is that I got to leverage all the same relationships that I had before. I got to stay in contact with all the resellers, all the partner companies, and then my network just grew because now I have all these friends in the different camera manufacturers and all the parts that go with them, all the different companies that make the accessories that go with the cameras. So it's been quite nice.
It's a fairly male-dominated industry, and so I was wondering, you're only the second female that we've had a lunch with in about 14 lunches, and not for lack of trying. There just are not that many people of your gender working in our industry. Do you find that it's sexist? Do you find any sexism in the industry?
I've come into it a couple of times, but for the most part, I'm too strong of a woman. I just ignore it. My dad raised a very strong, independent woman, and my experience bartending, I think, helped me to be able to just kind of let those passes and things you might get from men, just kind of ignore them. You know, they go over my head.
I guess bartending is probably the best way to get used to that, isn't it?
Well, when you bartend, you know, guys have your undivided attention for exactly maybe 10, 15 seconds. And there's some that want to take full advantage of it to try to like, hey, you know, and you're just kind of like, okay, I'm sorry, was that a vodka soda? Do you have a preference to your vodka? You know, okay, let me just ignore that, we'll move on. So yeah, so I think that, you know, has helped me kind of, you know, be in this industry. But I don't know, I mean, for the most part, all the men have been very easy to work with. They've been gentlemen, they've been very respectful. There's been no discounting me because I'm a woman. And, you know, I kind of take no, you know, so.
Well, does it work in your favor?
I think so, because I think a woman's energy brings a bit of a softness to like a company and a deal or whatever you're talking to. And I think some men, you know, it doesn't hurt, might prefer working with a woman as long as she's got the brains and the, you know, skills to actually accomplish the job. I don't think they mind. But I worked with G-Tech and I was the only girl there for a long time, so I got used to being around guys and the whole guys' way of talking and dealing with things. So, you know, I can be just one of the guys. Yeah.
Did they treat you like one of the guys?
They definitely didn't skirt their conversations because I was a woman. I don't think I realized how. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I don't want any of this to go. Yeah. I didn't realize that guys were so, you know, honest sometimes. But yeah, they definitely did not treat me like I was the woman. Oh, and then when I bartended, I had to tap my own kegs. I had to do all my own work. I didn't get any special treatment for being a girl, and I don't expect to. So, but you're right. The industry is only 10% women. So.
I was I've just recently went to a Burbank High School Vocal Music Association thing, and I was pleased to see that not only were all the performers also expected to pull everything down at the end of the night, but there was no gender discrimination in that. So, you know, Terry Curran's daughter was there, put the gloves on, changed out of the costume, the formal gear, and now we're starting to de-rig all the lights and put them out in the truck and get them back to wherever they meant to go. And that's been a. I just like to see that, because back in my distant past, I was the lighting tech for a church youth group thing back in Australia called New Life Singers. Well, you know, there was the four of us, the tech guys, and then there were the singers. And no singer ever picked up, or I think one or two people did offer to help from time to time, but there was no systematic involvement of everybody in how this actually comes about and how this magic happens, so that you can just come up on stage and perform and look good. And I'm pleased to see that that's changing, at least in Burbank High School's generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in our industry, you see a lot more women DPs, a lot more cinematographers. You know, I love to see that. I think, you know, it is a male-dominated industry, but I think for the most part, I haven't seen any negative side effects from that at all. And I think that the women are kind of coming up. They're coming strong. They're proving themselves. So.
Do you think it's male-dominated because the gear was heavy? And old habits die hard?
That's a good question. I'm not sure why. Yeah.
I think it's a male-dominated industry because men are more likely to be gear sluts. They like their buttons and their knobs and their flashing lights, and
definitely like their knobs.
Yep. And I think that's why there are more men in the industry, because it's gear, it's toys,
it's techy. Yeah, I'm quite the gear junkie myself, so I can see why you would say that. Yeah, absolutely.
The intention was simply to get practice of being on camera.
Yeah.
And just becoming natural on camera. So the food show, and because although the food has mostly been, the semi-serious foodies has mostly been a blog at this point, it's also video content. We've got one published video on Eloti, and then we've got a meatloaf one that I've had ready to publish for a week and just haven't had the 15 minutes I need to write up about it. And then we shot stuff in Spain and did the very stupid thing of doing 25 frames per second, 30 frames per second under a 50 hertz lighting.
Yes.
Oh, what did that look like?
Flicker, rolling flicker, as you would expect. But Digital Anarchy Flicker Free cleaned it up beautifully. Really, really perfect job.
There's something called Flickr Free?
Flickr Free, yeah.
gosh,
For Digital Anarchy, yeah. I think there's also there's another product similar, but that's the one that I chose. And yeah, it's a little processor intensive, but it really, really cleaned the thing up from nothing to something decent again.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
you would never know. You would never know looking at the finished result that it had gone through that process. So there, Jim. There's my there's my commercial for Flickr Free for you.
Yeah.
We bought it. We weren't given it.
Yes.
This is not an endorsement. This is not an advertisement. It's an endorsement.
We paid full retailing.
Oh, that's great.
Do you notice big changes in sales shifts as the economic environment changes?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But our product's priced so low that it's not seen as being, a purchase that they have to have approved, or, it's our prices are so low for our HD recorders that we say it's an insult to your camera not to buy one.
I like that line. That's good.
I attribute that to Lewis in the UK. I got to give credit where credit is due. But most definitely. But we don't sell $30,000 pieces of equipment that are really, really subject to the volatile markets and stuff. So our sales in like Latin America, though, that's a different story, because the economies there are all over the charts. Some are doing really bad, compared to others. And so, with our products in those countries, it's a bit more of a challenge. The U.S. has been doing quite well. I think I gave an interview with Digital Filmmaker magazine where I said how well the U.S. was doing and how Europe's right at my heels. So it was a nice little dig to my colleague Stefan over in Germany. So yeah.
What advice would you give your younger self about getting into a career? And that's coming from somebody who took to they were well and truly mature before they finally worked out what they wanted to be when they grew up. So I think I've got that together now.
I would say networking, and then also the biggest thing for me, I had a great boss, and he was more than a boss. Ian, he was a coach and a life coach, and he really cared about developing me into becoming a better sales rep, a better, having a career in the industry. And one of the things that he told me was, to guard my reputation and to make sure that, I always present myself as the way I want people to remember me. And so I remember one kind of mess up at my first NAB party with G-Tech. I was still kind of in bartender party mode. And I remember him saying, Heather, we want the stories to be about other people at our parties. And that was the kind of the segue into the conversation about, guarding my reputation. And so, I don't think anybody has anything but nice things to say about me. And I don't ever, I treat people the way you want to be treated. And, I really just guard my reputation. I try not to do anything stupid that's going to wreck it up, I don't think anyone has any negative stories. If you do, don't say anything. Shh.
I've not heard any negative stories. That's true. Although it looks to me like you actually have a fairly fun life, because you're always doing stuff on Facebook. You're always checking in here or checking in there. Wondering if that's the illusion you create, or you really do have such a fun life.
I have a great life. You work to live, not live to work. And so I always make sure that the life that I have outside of my job, my 9 to 5, is the life that I'm proud of. It's what I make money for, is to have the life. So I'm really lucky. I have a great group of friends. They're a great time, when we want to go out and have a good time. And I don't know, I like to experience life and travel. So yeah, no, it's not a front. That's really my life. It's really my life on Facebook. And some things that I don't post.
I bet. I think it's wise we don't post everything on Facebook.
Oh, thank goodness. Yes. Well, yeah.
Because Facebook is forever.
Is it?
Well,
I've never really tried to ever delete my account, but I've always wondered what happens.
I think you can delete your account completely, but I don't think it ever goes away from Facebook's server. So
Well, pretty soon Facebook will probably become this, you have to pay to basically have access to everything that you posted on your page. They're going to cut it off and go, okay, do you want to see the rest of your, the history of your life? $7.99 a month. Hopefully that never happens, but yeah.
He's going through his list.
What are you logging on to Lumberjack for?
Not so much for the one-off use of this, because really it's a cut down and tidy up edit of a multicam. But what I'm interested in doing is logging it so that after a period of time, we've got maybe 15 or 20 different interviews done, I can go back through Lumberyard and say, from all those interviews, pull me out all the career advice to your younger self, and now I do an edit of just tidied up those pieces. So, or what is the greatest change you expect to see? Or these common topics can create other content for very, very little effort on my part. So it's all about adding value long term to what we shoot contemporaneously, and it's a minor amount of diversion of attention, and I have logs forever. I have everything identified as where we talk about social media, where we talk about career start, where we talk about business, where we talk about democratization. So all these different takes on the same topic can be very quickly put together. And so it's about adding long-term value. In the same way, the cooking shows, there's not a lot of value in logging it for the cut down.
No.
But if I wanted to come back in 6, 8, 12 months, 2 years and do all the grilling segments or all of the treatment of steak, so that we could do another show that's steak or potatoes or whatever. So it's about adding long-term value to the content.
Being able to make better.
I would imagine reality shows use your stuff a lot.
Reality documentary is where it's really coming along well. But surprisingly, also sports, worship, it has applications there. A coach can come in if you log the player and the plays. You can get a string out immediately. As soon as your media is ingested, 2 minutes later you have, here are all Tom's plays, here are all Sam's plays, here are all Betty's plays, and here are all the touchdowns, here are all of the goals, here are all in the timeline for the coach to quickly go through and skim through. And so it's very quick about bringing that content. It's really, for us, about getting that first timeline that you then are going to polish and trim and expand and put B-roll in to get to that point as quickly as we can. And then provide these starting points so people have the opportunity to then be creative, because it's not that organisation string out stuff that you're being paid for as an editor. It's you take that and you make something beautiful out of it, or something that flows and something that's interesting or emotionally compelling, not just the organisational work. That's how you get to that point, and that's what I want to do with Lumberjack, is make it easy for people to get to that point. But speaking of change, though, how do you deal with the constant change that we've got in the industry? That going from having no competitors to having 4 competitors, to go from having people coming into the marketplace at a price point below where you've fairly priced your product. I mean, and the constant change that we have in this industry, more cameras to deal with all the time, more formats. How do you personally deal with all of that change?
I drink a lot. No, it's a challenge. That's something that I don't have to worry about as something that our CEOs are constantly concerned about, because it's education. I have to constantly be educating the resellers on how we fit into this evolving, changing market, how we all the benefits that we bring. Like there's cameras that record 4K internally now. So some people say, well, why do I need a recorder that records 4K? Well, there's a lot of benefits that using an external recorder brings, even though the cameras record internally at 4K. And not to get a sales pitch on everything that those are, but that's my constant effort, is to educate the resellers and the customers on what that is. So really it's education, and then of course it's adding features and different features to our product that people are asking for. That's how I think responsiveness is an important part, how quick you can respond to the evolving market. So,
and that's where it's great being in a smaller company.
Yeah. You would think it's faster to get things done.
Depends what day of the week it is.
I don't know. Have you
You would think it is. And I do know that, I've heard a lot from some camera manufacturers about how it's just this slow moving ship. But that's, the bigger the company gets, the more people are involved, the more red tape there is, and the harder it is to get things done. with Adamus and with the G-Tech of old, it was your feedback matters. You have input. You know, you're able to kind of move things quicker. But of course, you have a smaller team with less resources, so you're at a constant. It's a balancing act. But yeah, it's tough changing with the evolving markets. You know, but the good thing is with Adamus in particular, our company is based in Australia, but my boss speaks fluent Japanese, and he's an 8-hour flight from Japan. So in terms of the camera manufacturers, he's always flying up there. He's friends with all the guys in the headquarters of the different camera companies. He's often privy to sensitive information or announcements that are coming out. And he gets in at the ground floor of these announcements on, hey, how can we work together? What can I help you do? I mean, we've done a lot in terms of the VeriCam and the ProRes implementation that they have. That's Adamus's ProRes implementation. So they were involved with the development of the camera. With the C100 that came out from Canon, we helped them to embed the start-stop flags that come from the HDMI into our recorders, because before there were no start-stop flags embedded in HDMI. So, you know, and now we've made it an open protocol, so now some of our competitors are able to take advantage of things that we invented. So Jeremy and them, they've got good relationships, and so I think that kind of gives us an edge over some of our competitors in terms of staying ahead of the change.
What do you think has been the biggest change you've experienced during your career? And it can be technology, or it can even just be society.
The biggest change that I've seen, well, I would say the biggest is how impressive DSLRs and mirrorless cameras have gotten. You know, when I was new with the company, the D800 had just come out. Adamus had just introduced their Ninja 2 to go with the clean output out of the D800, which seemed to be the catalyst for, wow, look at what all of this DSLRs are able to do. We're able to record 10-bit, 422 straight from the sensor of the camera, bypassing all that MPEG compression that happens when you record internally. And when all of a sudden these cameras were starting to be utilized a lot more in productions, they started becoming more and more impressive. So, productions were not just using them as B cameras, they were using them as their primary cameras. I mean, I know for the D800, I know it was used a lot on shows like really nice productions, and so they kind of went from being just photography cameras to actually being utilized as video cameras. And now look where everything's come. I mean, now most cameras that are above a certain price point, not the consumer cameras, but they have a clean output to our recorders. The D800 was the first, the one and only. And then I remember things for us really took off after the Canon 5D Mark III. After Canon announced a firmware that would give the 5D Mark III clean output, we sold out of our product, I think 3 months worth of product in just like a few days. Wow. And so it was really nice. There was a lot of Canon users waiting to use our product. And then after that, Sony with the Alpha 7S and all the mirrorless cameras that have come out. It's been great. But that's kind of been the big wow for me, is not necessarily the transition to 4K, because that's kind of slowly been this thing that's coming, and now it's a reality, and now we've come out with 4K products and everybody just jumped to 8K on us. Makes my life difficult.
Well, keeping on that, what do you think will be the biggest change? I mean, this is the hardest question of all, is predicting forward. And you've got, a long career ahead of you yet, so what do you think might be the biggest change?
Virtual reality, for sure. Well, it's not a change, but I think virtual reality has become more and more of a staple, a reality. Virtual reality is going to become more of a reality than you see it right now. I think its applications will become, a lot wider in the future. I think there was a lot of articles about that coming out of Sundance. Was all the virtual reality stuff that was happening. I mean, 3D kind of came and
I tended to always think about 3D as being, well, it's a gimmick for the theatre, and every 30 years it reappears. Yeah. But the whole need for wearing glasses in the home. It's like, and what happens when somebody drops by? It's like, bring your own glasses because they're not cheap.
Well, absolutely. I remember there was like a stand at NAB, somebody who had all the custom 3D glasses. You could get your own custom 3D glasses. It was looking like it was going to become something. They were really trying, and then it didn't. And I mean, virtual reality, you have to have equipment similar, but I mean, if you're going to be experiencing history or experiencing a house, there's lots of different applications for virtual reality, and so I think in the different markets we're going to start seeing that pop up more, just like the way people use drones and GoPros. It's like there's so many different ways you can use a drone for real estate, for
2012 with the whole Solar Odyssey thing, and there was some possibility of getting a really expensive drone at that point, about 10K, to take with us and shoot, that would carry a small DSLR for a better quality. And just learning to fly it at that point was horrendously complicated. But at the same time, I thought, holy heck, what we can do with this. We can position a camera pretty much anywhere we want to put a camera and move it. And then the drop-dead giveaway for me was I was in their office one day and I just saw the list of things they were going to do in software in their development path. And it's like, follow a path, return to home, fly automatically. All of this stuff that largely has been implemented now in much less expensive drones. But this stuff was, back in 2012, it's like, okay, I'm not the guy to come and be the expert in this. I can see the potential. Metadata is my thing, drones are somebody else's. But so that's definitely a change that we've seen, and it's going to be hard to predict future change because I'm not sure about VR for virtual reality for storytelling.
Probably not so much for storytelling.
Gaming, absolutely. As you said, museum experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
Even surgeries, remote surgeries and things like that are all going to be completely changed. That and 3D printing, of course.
Do you ever go to DGA's tech day that they have?
When I get enough notice that I can get
I know.
there.
I always find out about it too late too, but they had a lot of awesome technology that they were demoing. I mean, when I went a couple of years ago, I thought they had this way of being able to tell where your eyes go, on a certain, so they would trace, they would show a film and then they would have people...
A heat map, I think they call it.
Yeah, so they would actually see where people's eyes go and, kind of that would help with, the marketing or the...
Well, it's actually a thing with in editing, we try, in an edit, we try and keep the eye line. So you don't have a focus of attention down here in the bottom left of the shot and then try and go up to the top right for the next thing of attention. You should try and lead the eye up that way somehow. Right. So that it transitions across into the next spot where you want people to be looking. It can be tricky. It's a lot of things that editors actually have to keep in their mind.
Okay, so big technology developments in our storytelling industry then. HDR, what's your opinion?
Oh, yeah. Better pixels. I've always said better pixels over more pixels. Absolutely. So high dynamic range, wider color spaces. I'm more ambivalent about high frame rate, but definitely the better color space and the high dynamic range and particularly sort of the much brighter displays that we're talking about, the Dolby Vision and its competitors. Friday night at Editor's Lounge, we were talking about, they actually had a Dolby Vision presentation and a Sony TV that's only 1,000 nits, and the Dolby Vision's up around the 4,000 nit. So now we're nitpicking on light, but
yeah, because with televisions, it all comes down to what's the thing that's going to make a consumer go, oh, my old television is so much worse than this. Definitely,
I know.
Definitely going from black and white to color, that's a big step up.
Yeah.
But going from mono to stereo sound, it was like...
And even going from HD to a 4K TV, it's not enough to make me get rid of the TV that I once spent $1,500, $2,000 on.
You need to have a bigger screen and be closer before you get the benefit, whereas perceived sharpness has always been about that contrast range, not about the number of pixels. And so having a much higher contrast range where we can see detail in the brightest brights and the darkest depths. And we've got the cameras that can do it. We just need to be able to get the displays that can do it and get the whole chain to get through. I was very impressed to discover just how much metadata was important to the whole Dolby Vision process. Yeah, because they do a master, but then they have metadata that transforms that into whatever display it's actually being displayed for. So they rearrange and change the grading depending on the display that it's going to be shown on, and it's all done in metadata.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think, what's your opinion? What do you think about HDR?
Oh, I think it's going to become more and more important in our industry, and I think you're going to see a lot more products coming out that are HDR focused. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm with you on the better pixels, not more pixels. Absolutely.
HDR would be a thing that would make me want to buy a new television set.
Oh, me too. Me too. You know what's funny is the first time I got my HD TV from my old box set TV, I was just floored and couldn't stop staring at just how real everything looked.
Yeah.
Now when I watch it, I can actually see the granular difference in the TV. I can see what it was shot in, why it's not, and I'm just going, God, man, your eyes, they get so like sophisticated, and then you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
I
I remember looking at the 60K bytes of frame on the Media 100 rate and thought, well, that looks okay. And about 3 weeks later, I was like, that doesn't look okay anymore. I've got used to looking, and I know what to look for now, and I'm now disappointed.
I know. And there isn't enough of a difference between HD and 4K to make me go out and buy a new 4K television. And I wanted to get a 4K, this awesome Sony camcorder, but I didn't want to have to go out and buy the Sony 4K TV to be able to play for my Sony 4K. And I was kind of like, it wasn't enough to make me make all those purchases.
Yeah.
But in HDR, well, we'll talk.
When they become affordable.
Yes. Well, it's just like anything. The longer it's been out, the more products come out. It drives the price down. So, yeah. Who do we know that makes HDR TVs? Who can we talk to?
Who can we talk to? So Heather, where can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up on anything? Obviously, if they were interested in Atomos, they can contact you. But if they just want to get in touch with you personally.
My phone number is, no, I'm just kidding.
No.
They can email me.
Okay.
It's the simplest email ever, heather@atomus.com. There can never be another Heather at Atomus.
There will at least be Heather too.
Yes.
Heather the lesser.
Oh, there you go. Heather Dos. Heather@atomus.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn, Heather Williams.
Well, thank you very much, Heather Williams, for having lunch with Philip and Greg.
Yes, thank you guys.